Damien Cross built empires while other men slept. The city stretched below his 40th floor window. A grid of lights and ambition, and he owned more of it than most people realized. At 35, he had transformed his father's dying investment firm into a global force. The cost. Everything that made him human. He arrived at Cross Industries at 6:45 a.m., an hour before anyone else. The silence suited him. No fake smiles, no small talk, no pretending he cared about weekend plans or family photos on desks. His assistant's workspace was already occupied when he passed at 7:35. Elena Carter. 3 years she'd worked outside his office. 3 years of perfect efficiency, invisible dedication, anticipating his needs before he voiced them. He knew her last name because he signed her paychecks. Her first name existed somewhere in HR files he'd never bothered to read. She looked up as he passed. Those brown eyes held something he'd spent years training himself not to see in people. Hope. He looked away. The morning meeting was standard. Executives stumbling through presentations, marketing, fumbling statistics. Then Carter spoke. "Mr. Cross, if I may, the actual market penetration rate is 23%, not 18%. The room froze. She'd interrupted him. This invisible woman had the audacity to correct his team in front of investors. Something hot and violent stirred in his chest. Not anger. Something worse. The realization that she'd been paying attention, that she understood the business better than half the executives at this table, that he'd been walking past brilliance every day and never stopped to notice. He crushed the feeling like an insect. "Carter, did I ask for your input?" Her face went pale. "No, sir, but I thought what would be helpful is if you understood your role. You're here to take notes, not to interrupt executives who actually understand this business." He watched her die a little. Watched the light in those brown eyes flicker and fade. Watched her become smaller, invisible again. It was necessary. Weakness in his world got you destroyed. But that night, alone in his penthouse apartment, Damien poured 3 fingers of scotch and stared at the city lights. He could still see her face. The exact moment he'd broken something inside her. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, his oldest friend and the company's CFO. That was brutal, even for you. "She's been carrying this place for years." Damien deleted the message. He'd built his empire by cutting away anything soft. Emotions were vulnerabilities. Connections were liabilities. He'd learned that lesson when his father's kindness had nearly bankrupted them. When the woman he'd loved in college had sold his business. Plans to a competitor for $50,000. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. 3 months passed. Damien perfected the art of not seeing Elena Carter. She was furniture, wallpaper, part of the office infrastructure. Then one November morning, she walked in wearing a diamond ring. The world tilted. Damien stood at his office window, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips, watching her laugh with Julia from Creative. The ring caught the fluorescent lights, throwing tiny rainbows across her desk. Someone had seen her. Someone had looked at this brilliant, invisible woman and recognized what she was worth. Someone had claimed her, while Damien had been too proud, too damaged, too afraid to even learn her first name. The coffee cup shattered against his desk. His secretary rushed in. "Mr. Cross, are you out?" His voice came out strangled. "Everyone out. Cancel my morning meetings." Alone in his office, Damien Cross. The man who'd conquered boardrooms and broken competitors, pressed his palms against the cold glass and felt something crack inside his chest. He'd spent 3 years teaching himself not to want her. One ring had just revealed the lie. Damien couldn't stop watching her. For 3 years, he'd mastered the art of looking through Elena Carter. Now he couldn't look away. The way she smiled at her phone during lunch, the absent way she twisted that ring when she concentrated, the lightness in her step that hadn't existed before. Someone else had given her that. "You're staring again." Marcus dropped into the chair across from Damien's desk. "It's becoming uncomfortable for everyone." Damien's jaw tightened. "I'm observing employee morale, right? And I'm the Queen of England." Marcus leaned forward. 3 years? D, you had 3 years to see what was right in front of you. Now, someone else did, and you're having a breakdown in slow motion. I don't break down, no. You break other people. Marcus's voice went quiet. That's always been easier, hasn't it? The words hit like a blade between ribs. Damien stood, walked to the window. Below, the city moved in its endless rhythm. Somewhere down there, Elena Carter was planning a future that didn't include him. Find out who he is, Damien said. Absolutely not, Marcus. No. His friend stood. You don't get to do this. You humiliated her in front of the entire executive team. You spent years treating her like she was invisible. Now she's found someone who actually sees her, and you want to what? Sabotage it. Destroy him. Prove you're the bigger monster? Damien's hands clenched into fists. You don't understand? Then explain it to me. The silence stretched. Outside, clouds gathered over the city, promising rain. I can't, Damien finally said. Marcus left without another word. That afternoon, Damien did something unprecedented. He invited Elena into a meeting with investors, then asked her to present the market analysis. Her analysis. The work she'd done that he'd claimed as his own for 3 years. She stood at the front of the conference room, her voice steady and clear, and Damien watched the investors lean forward. Impressed, she was magnificent. When she finished, he caught her in the hallway. Carter. A moment she turned, and for the first time in 3 years, she met his eyes without flinching. The ring on her finger caught the light. Your presentation was excellent, he forced out. I should have been utilizing your analytical skills more effectively. Thank you, sir. I was wondering. Damien stopped. What was he doing? Your fiancé. What does he do? Something flickered across her face. Surprise. Suspicion. He's a graphic designer, I see. Damien's mind worked rapidly. We have a major rebranding campaign coming up. Perhaps he'd be interested in bidding for the contract. Lena's eyes narrowed. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Suddenly seeing me? Suddenly caring about my life, my work, my future? Her voice stayed quiet, but steel ran underneath. 3 years, Mr. Cross. 3 years I worked nights and weekends for this company. For you? I anticipated your needs, fixed your mistakes, made you look brilliant in meetings you barely prepared for. And you never once looked at me like I was human. The truth landed like a fist to the solar plexus. Now I'm engaged, she continued, and suddenly I exist. Suddenly I'm worth acknowledging. She stepped closer, and he could smell her perfume, something subtle and devastating. I don't need your validation anymore. I stopped waiting for it the day Nathan asked me to marry him. The name felt like swallowing glass. Elena, it's Ms. Carter, Mr. Cross? Or did you forget we have a professional relationship? She turned to walk away, then paused. And for the record, Nathan doesn't need your contract. He has more integrity in his little finger than you have in your entire empire. She left him standing in the empty hallway, his heart hammering against his ribs. That evening, Damien did what he'd sworn never to do again. He called in a favor from an old friend in private investigation. Within 2 hours, he had a file on Nathan Brooks. Freelance graphic designer, 32 years old, decent portfolio, 3 failed startups, $47,000 in debt, and 6 months ago, he'd been hired by Cross Industries' main competitor. Damien stared at the photograph of Nathan Brooks. Average height, friendly smile, kind eyes. The kind of man who probably remembered birthdays and said I love you without choking on the words. The kind of man Elena deserved. But the timing? 6 months ago, right before their competitor launched a hostile takeover attempt that had nearly succeeded. An attempt that failed because Elena had found a crucial legal loophole in their contracts. Elena, who suddenly started dating a man with connections to their enemy. Elena, who now wore an engagement ring and had access to every confidential file in Damien's office. His phone rang. Marcus. Whatever you're thinking, his friend said, don't. Nathan Brooks works for Titan Corp. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. 6 months ago, Damien continued, his voice hollow, right when they tried to destroy us. Right when Elena saved the company. Damien, She's the perfect inside source. She knows everything. She's in love with him. She'd do anything for him. The words tasted like poison. It's brilliant, actually. Target the invisible assistant nobody notices. The woman I've spent years teaching to be grateful for scraps. Of course she'd fall for the first man who showed her basic human kindness. You don't know that, don't I? Damien ended the call. Sat in the darkness of his office as the city lights blurred below. Everything hurt. His chest, his head, his hands where he'd clenched them until the nails drew blood. He'd spent 3 years making Elena Carter invisible. Now he'd spend however long it took making sure she knew he'd finally learned to see. Elena noticed the shift immediately. Suddenly, Damien Cross included her in high-level meetings, asked her opinions on strategy, praised her work in front of executives who'd spent years looking through her. He even smiled at her once, a brief crack in his Ice King facade that made her stomach twist with confusion. He's up to something, Julia said over lunch. Damien Cross doesn't do nice. He does, calculated. Lena twisted her engagement ring. Maybe he's just finally recognizing my work? After 3 years? Right after you get engaged? Julia shook her head. Girl, I love you, but you're smarter than this. That night, Nathan took her to their favorite bookstore cafe. He'd been distant lately, distracted. His sketchbook lay untouched on the table between them. Everything okay? Elena asked. He looked up, and something in his hazel eyes made her heart skip. I need to tell you something. The air in the cafe suddenly felt too thin. I wasn't completely honest about how we met, Nathan said quietly. That night in the cafe? It wasn't coincidence. Elena's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. What? I was hired to get close to you. As the words came out, rushed, desperate. 6 months ago, by Titan Corp. They knew you worked for Cross, knew you had access to confidential information. They thought if someone showed you kindness, made you feel valued, you were using me. The words came out flat, dead. God. Elena, no. Listen. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. It started that way, yes? But the moment I met you, the moment we started talking, everything changed. I fell in love with you, real love. I called off the arrangement after our second date. I told them I couldn't do it. You proposed to me? Elena's voice shook. You asked me to marry you, and it was all a lie. The proposal was real. My feelings are real. Elena, please. She stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. Other cafe patrons turned to stare. She didn't care. How much did they pay you? To make me fall in love with you? To make me feel like I mattered? Elena, how much? Nathan's face crumpled. $50,000. The number hit her like a physical blow. 50,000. The exact amount her trust was worth. The exact price of her heart. She pulled off the engagement ring and dropped it on the table. It landed with a tiny, final clink. Elena wait, but she was already walking out into the rain. The next morning, Elena arrived at Cross Industries at 6:30 a.m., earlier than ever before. She needed to move, to work, to do anything that would stop her from thinking about Nathan's face, about how every moment of joy had been purchased, about how she'd been invisible even to the man who claimed to love her. She was crying at her desk when Damien arrived. He stopped dead in the hallway. For a long moment, he just stood there, his briefcase in one hand, his expression unreadable. Then he walked into his office and closed the door. Elena buried her face in her hands. Of course, even her pain was invisible to him. But 30 seconds later, his door opened again. Carter. My office. Now. She wiped her face quickly and followed him in. He gestured to the leather chair across from his desk, then poured 2 glasses of scotch from the crystal decanter by the window. It's 7 a.m., Elena said. I'm aware. He handed her a glass. Drink. She did. The alcohol burned down her throat, sharp and cleansing. Damien sat on the edge of his desk, close enough that she could see the dark circles under his eyes. Nathan Brooks was hired by Titan Corp to get close to you. To use you for information. Elena's head snapped up. How did I know everything that happens in this company? Including threats to it. His blue eyes held hers. I've known for 2 weeks, and you didn't tell me? I was gathering evidence. Building a case. I wasn't sure. He stopped, his jaw working. I wasn't sure if you knew. If you were part of it? The accusation hung between them like smoke. You thought I was betraying you? Elena's laugh came out broken. After 3 years of loyalty, you thought I'd sell you out for what? A man who pretended to love me? I didn't know what to think. You had every reason to hate me. I gave you those reasons. Damien's voice went rough. I taught you that you were worthless. Then he came along and taught you the opposite. Why wouldn't you choose him over me? Because unlike you, I have integrity. Elena stood, setting down the glass with shaking hands. I've spent 3 years watching you destroy people without blinking. Watching you treat everyone around you like they're disposable. And you know what the worst part is? I still showed up every single day. I still gave you my best work, because I thought maybe, somehow, if I was good enough, smart enough, dedicated enough, you might finally see me. I see you now. Too late. She turned toward the door. I quit, Elena. Wait, it's Miss Carter. She looked back at him, and something in her expression made him flinch. And congratulations, Mr. Cross. You finally learned my first name. It only took you destroying the first good thing I'd found in years. She walked out. But she didn't leave the building. Instead, Elena went to the server room. Used her administrative access to pull up every file she'd worked on for the past 3 years. Every contract, every deal, every confidential strategy. She downloaded them all onto a flash drive. Not for Titan Corp. Not for revenge. But because Damien Cross had taught her an important lesson. In this world, you needed weapons to survive. And she'd just armed herself with enough ammunition to destroy him completely. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I can give you $200,000 for those files. And a job that will make Cross regret ever looking through you. Sarah Chen, Titan Corp Elena, stared at the message. At the flash drive in her hand. At the reflection of herself in the darkened computer screen. 3 years of invisible loyalty. 1 betrayal from the man she'd loved. 1 lifetime of being underestimated. Her finger hovered over the reply button. Elena didn't reply to the text. Instead, she sat in the empty server room, the flash drive burning a hole in her palm, and thought about who she wanted to be. The invisible woman who'd spent 3 years being loyal to someone who never saw her. Or the woman who finally took what she deserved. Consequences be damned. She was still sitting there an hour later when the door opened. Damien stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, his tie loosened. He looked exhausted, human. I had security alert me if you accessed the server room, he said quietly. I figured you'd either be stealing files to sell to Titan Corp, or, he trailed off, or what? Or proving me wrong about everything I thought I knew about you. Elena held up the flash drive. I have 3 years of confidential files on here. Enough to destroy Cross Industries. Enough to make you bankrupt. I know. Titan Corp just offered me $200,000 for them. Damien nodded slowly. That's a fair price. Given what's on there, they'd make millions. And you're not trying to stop me? He walked into the room, sat down on the floor across from her. The great Damien Cross, sitting on cold concrete in his $5,000 suit. Would you believe me if I said I deserved it? Elena stared at him. What game are you playing? For once in my life, no game. He leaned his head back against the wall. You want to know why I treated you the way I did? Why I spent 3 years making you invisible? Because you're a heartless bastard? Because I was terrified. The confession came out raw. From the day you started working here, I knew you were dangerous. Not to the company. At me? You were smart, dedicated, kind. Everything I'd trained myself not to want. So I pushed you away. I made you invisible because if I really saw you, if I let myself acknowledge what you were, I'd want you. And wanting leads to weakness. Weakness gets you destroyed. Elena's throat tightened. That's not an excuse. No. It's just the truth. He looked at her, and for the first time, his eyes held no walls. My father almost lost everything because he trusted the wrong person. The woman I loved in college sold my business plans for $50,000. I learned early that caring about people gives them power to destroy you. So I stopped caring. Until now. Until you walked in wearing another man's ring and I realized I'd already been destroyed. Just slowly, invisibly. The way I'd been destroying you. Damien's voice cracked. Nathan Brooks was hired to use you. But the cruel irony? I used you worse. I used your dedication, your intelligence, your loyalty. And I gave you nothing in return. Not recognition. Not respect. Not even your own damn name. Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. And because whatever you decide to do with that flash drive, I want you to make the choice, knowing that I finally see you. Elena Carter. The most brilliant person I've ever worked with. The woman I was too broken and afraid to appreciate until it was too late. They sat in silence. The server room hummed around them, a mechanical heartbeat in the belly of the building. Titan Corp's offer is still good, Elena finally said. I could walk out of here right now. Destroy you. Start over somewhere else. Yes, I'd be set for years. Never have to feel invisible again. Yes, but I'd always know I became exactly what you taught me to be. Someone who uses people and throws them away when they're done. Damien's eyes closed. When he opened them again, they were wet. I'm sorry. God, Elena, I'm so sorry. For all of it. Elena stood up. Damien watched her, its expression resigned, accepting. She walked over to the industrial shredder, mounted on the wall, and fed the flash drive into it. The machine whirred. 3 years of confidential files ground into confetti. $200,000 disappearing into recycled bits. Her weapon. Her leverage. Her revenge gone. Gone. Damien stared at the shredder, then at her. Hey? Because someone has to be better than what this world makes us. Elena wiped her face. And because I'm tired of being invisible, but I'm more tired of being cruel. You taught me what not to be, Mr. Cross. Nathan taught me what fake love looks like. I'm done with both lessons. She walked toward the door.
Elena, wait.
Damien stood, and there was something desperate in his movement. Don't quit, please. Let me make this right. Can't make it right. Let me try. Cross the space between them. I'll make you VP of strategy. Triple your salary. Give you actual power in this company, not just the invisible kind where you do the work and I take credit. Elena shook her head. I don't want your guilt money then. What do you want? She looked at him, this damaged man in his expensive armor, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not forgiveness. Something more complicated? Understanding? Maybe. Recognition of shared scars. I want you to be better, she said quietly. Not for me. For yourself. Because this? She gestured around them. This empire you've built on fear and isolation, it's not making you happy. It's killing you slowly. And when you finally die alone in your penthouse, surrounded by money and achievements, you'll realize you wasted your entire life being afraid of the one thing that makes us human. What's that? Connection. Elena reached out, touched his hand briefly. The contact sent electricity through them both. Real connection. The kind that makes you vulnerable. The kind that might hurt you, but might also save you. She left him standing there. But this time, she didn't go far. She went back to her desk, opened her laptop, and started working on the Henderson portfolio that was due Monday, because Elena Carter had just learned something crucial. Revenge felt powerful for a moment. But integrity lasted forever. An hour later, an email pinged into her inbox from Damien Cross. Subject: immediate action required. Lena. Effective immediately. You are promoted to VP of Strategic Development's Allery. $250,000 annually direct report to CEO, full access to executive meetings and decisions. Your own office on the 40th floor. This is not guilt money. This is 3 years of back pay for work I stole from you. This is recognition you earned 1,000 times over. This is me being better, starting now. Also, Nathan Brooks has been banned from the building, and Titan Corp is facing legal action for corporate espionage. You don't have to worry about him anymore. Finally, I'm sorry. Doesn't cover it. But I'm going to spend however long it takes showing you. I mean it. Damien P.S. Your first name is Elena. It means light. I looked it up. It suits you. Elena read the email 3 times. Then she walked into his office without knocking. Damien looked up from his desk, hope and fear warring on his face. I'll take the promotion, she said. But I have conditions. Anything. You start seeing a therapist. You stop treating people like they're disposable. You learn everyone's first name, not just mine. And if you ever humiliate someone in a meeting the way you humiliated me, I walk. No negotiation. Done. One more thing. Elena stepped closer to his desk. You don't get to fall in love with me out of guilt. If something real develops between us, it happens honestly. Slowly. With both of us fully aware of what we're doing. But I'm not your redemption arc, Damien. I'm not here to fix you or save you. I'm here to build a career and maybe, if you prove you're worth it, build something else too. Damien stood, and the look in his eyes made her heart stutter. I don't deserve a chance. No, Elena agreed. But I'm giving you one anyway. Don't waste it. He extended his hand across the desk. A handshake? Professional? Appropriate? But when their palms touched, the jolt of connection was anything but professional. I won't, he promised. Elena left his office, her heart racing, her mind spinning. She'd just made a deal with the devil, who'd spent 3 years making her invisible. Now she'd find out if he could learn to see. 6 months later, Elena sat in her new office, reviewing contracts for a major acquisition, when Damien knocked on her door. Actually knocked. The Damien Cross, who used to summon people now, asked permission to enter spaces. Come in, she called. He entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He'd learned her order. Cappuccino, extra foam, a dash of cinnamon. Small things. The details that mattered. The Tokyo deal closes tomorrow, he said, setting her coffee down. Because of your negotiation strategy, you saved us $3 million. You saved $3 million, Elena corrected. It was a team effort. You're allowed to take credit for your own brilliance now, you know? The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. Damien's smiles were rare, earned things. She collected them like precious stones. Old habits, she admitted. He sat in the chair across from her desk. They'd been doing this for months now. Coffee meetings. Strategy sessions. Conversations that started professional and drifted into personal. Learning each other slowly, carefully, like 2 people defusing a bomb made of their own damage. I finished my 10th therapy session yesterday, Damien said quietly. Dr. Morrison says I'm making progress. Still have a long way to go, but the nightmares are better. I'm sleeping more than 3 hours a night now, that's good. Elena meant it. She'd watched him transform over these months. Saw him learn people's names, thank the cleaning staff, apologize when he was wrong. Small revolutions in behavior that cost him everything and meant everything. I also did something today. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. I tracked down the woman who sold my business plans 8 years ago. Sarah Mitchell. Elena's breath caught. Why? Because Dr. Morrison said I needed closure. Turns out Sarah was a grad student drowning in debt. Her mother was dying of cancer. She took the $50,000 because it was either betray me or watch her mother die without treatment. Damien's voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. I'd spent 8 years hating her, building walls because of her betrayal, and the whole time she was just desperate and human and making an impossible choice. What did you do? I forgave her. Then I wrote her a check for the medical bills she's still paying off. He met Elena's eyes. I can't get back the years I wasted being bitter, but I can stop wasting the ones I have left. Elena felt something crack open in her chest. This man, this broken, brilliant, slowly healing man. There's something else, Damien continued. He stood, walked to her window. The city spread below them, sunset painting everything gold. Nathan Brooks came to see me. Elena went very still. She hadn't heard Nathan's name in months. Hadn't wanted to. He wanted me to give you something. Damien pulled an envelope from his pocket. A letter. I read it first because I'm still paranoid and overprotective, but it's safe. Just words. If you want it. Elena took the envelope with numb fingers. Inside, Nathan's familiar handwriting covered a single page. Elena, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know the truth. I fell in love with you the moment you called yourself an emotional disaster in that cafe. Real love. The kind that made me walk away from $50,000 because keeping you meant more than any amount of money. I was weak, desperate, drowning in debt and bad decisions. But you were the best thing that ever happened to me. The proposal was real. My feelings were real. Everything except how we met was real. I'm moving to Portland. Starting over. Getting therapy. Trying to become someone worthy of the forgiveness I don't deserve. I hope you found someone who sees you the way I should have from the start. Honestly. Completely. Without agendas or lies. I hope you're happy. Nathan. Elena folded the letter carefully. Felt the ghost of old pain, but no fresh wound. Thank you for giving me this. Do you miss him? Damien asked. I miss who I thought he was, but that person never existed. She set the letter aside. I don't miss the lie. And if he'd been real, if he'd met you honestly, without Titan corpse money, would you have loved him? Elena considered this. Maybe. But I'm not the same woman I was 6 months ago. That woman was invisible. Desperate for someone to see her. I'm not desperate anymore. What are you now? She walked to where he stood by the window. The city lights were beginning to sparkle as darkness fell. I'm VP of Strategic Development at one of the most powerful companies in the world. I have influence, respect, a salary that makes me dizzy. I have a boss who's learning to be human. And I have myself. Finally, is that enough? Damien's voice went rough. Just yourself? Elena looked at him. Really looked. At the dark circles that were finally fading. At the gray suit that fit perfectly but no longer looked like armor. At the blue eyes that had learned to see people instead of just using them. I don't know yet, she said honestly. But I'm figuring it out. We both are. I'm falling in love with you. The confession came out raw. I know I said we'd take it slow, that I wouldn't make this about my guilt or your redemption. But I need you to know, because I promised to be honest. I'm falling in love with you, Elena. The real you. The brilliant, sharp, kind woman who destroyed a flash drive full of weapons because integrity mattered more than revenge. The woman who gave me a chance I didn't deserve and makes me want to be better every single day. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Damien, you don't have to say anything back. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that you're not invisible anymore. Not to me, not to anyone. You're the light in this building. In this company. In my life, she reached up, touched his face gently. He leaned into her palm like a man starving for contact. I'm not ready to love you yet, Elena said quietly. But I'm not ready either. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. I need time. I need to trust that this is real. That you've really changed. That we're not just two damaged people using each other to feel less broken. Take all the time you need. Damien's hand covered hers on his face. I'll be here, proving I'm worth it, however long it takes. He stood like that as the city fell into darkness around them. Two people learning to see each other. Learning to be seen. No longer invisible. No longer alone. Not yet love. But maybe something better. Maybe trust. Maybe hope. Maybe the beginning of something real, 3 years later. Elena Carter Cross stood at the altar of a small botanical garden. The air smelled of jasmine and fresh earth. Damien stood across from her, tears streaming down his face without shame. Holding her hands like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. You taught me that love isn't about possession, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It's about seeing someone completely and choosing them anyway. You saw all my damage, all my cruelty, all my fear, and you gave me a chance to be better. You gave me myself back. Lena smiled through her own tears. You taught me that being visible isn't about someone else seeing you. It's about learning to see yourself. about knowing your worth regardless of who recognizes it. They'd written their own vows. No traditional promises, just truth. I promise to keep being better, Damien said. To keep going to therapy, to keep treating people with the respect they deserve, to never make anyone feel invisible again. I promise to keep being honest, Elena said. To call you on your crap, to push you to grow, to never lose myself in loving you. I promise to love you not because you saved me, but because you're you. I promise to love you not, despite your damage, but because you faced it. The minister smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you partners in life, love, and continuous growth. You may kiss. Damien pulled Elena close and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. The small crowd cheered. Marcus, as best man, wiped his eyes. Julia, as maid of honor, sobbed openly. Later at the reception, Elena stood by the fountain where Nathan had proposed 3 years ago. Full circle. Different man. Different woman. Different story. Damien found her there, 2 champagne flutes in hand. Regrets? He asked, handing her a glass. Elena looked at her husband. This impossible, difficult, beautiful man who'd learned to be human. Not a single one, not even Nathan. Especially not Nathan. He taught me what fake love looks like. You taught me what real growth looks like. That's worth everything. They clinked glasses as the sun set over the botanical gardens, painting everything in shades of amber and rose, too. Broken people who'd learned to heal, 2 invisible souls who'd learned to see and be seen, not a fairy tale. Something better, a real story, with real pain and real growth and real love earned through real work. Elena Carter had spent 3 years being invisible, but she'd spent the 3 years after that becoming light, and in the end, that made all the difference. The end.